Hello friends, welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is Danny and today we're going to go through my 25 to read in 2025. I'm going to do this differently than I've done in years past. In 2024, I gave you guys 24 backlist books. So I have done themes before with my books that I've given you for each year, but I've never done categories. So what I'm going to do this year is I came up with 5 different categories that we're going to talk through and the 5 books in each category that I would like to read. These categories are focused around my yearly goals and just some things that I would like to make myself aware of and kind of keep at the front of my mind throughout the year. There are 2 categories, which we'll get to at the end, that have a little bit more wiggle room than I've given myself in the past, but I think it will be good because in 2024, there were 5 books on my list that I never picked up, never even considered picking up, either for one, the reason of me not being interested anymore and just my taste changing and those kind of fell off my radar, or 2, they were intimidating and so I procrastinated and still haven't picked them up, but do plan to in the future. So giving myself a little bit of wiggle room this year, I'm hoping will alleviate some of the procrastination elements and then also allow myself to put in books that I am still interested in. The first category that we're going to jump right into is fantasy standalones. This year I did a top 10 list for my favorite fantasy standalones that I've ever read, and in doing that, I realized that I haven't read a ton of standalones, and a lot of the ones that I have read I've loved. So I would like to get into that a little bit and see if I can find a little bit of a niche within fantasy standalones. A lot of the ones that I have read and loved have been genre blends, and so I kind of leaned into that a little bit too. So some of these, I guess you could call this the genre blend category as well, but they all are fantasy standalones, or at least categorized, half in the fantasy genre. So the first is one that I haven't heard anyone talk about, and I don't even remember where I found it. It's on my Goodreads. It's been there forever, but it is something I am still interested in. It's called The Dream Quest of Velit, or Velit, I'm not sure how to pronounce that name, Bow. So The Dream Quest of Velit Bow. This is about Velit Bow, who is a professor at an elite institution. One of her students ends up, I don't know if it's being taken or going with somebody. I think it said something about her getting married and then being swept up into the dream world. And so Velit goes in to get her student back and retrieve her. But in the process of going through the dreamscape, she ends up running into some of her past that was never supposed to surface. And yeah, I want to know more about this dreamscape. Anything that has to do with dreams, after reading Delegate Dream Department Store and seeing some of the really fun themes that you can see within a dreamscape, I really do like that. And so I'm interested to see where this goes. Next is I'm Afraid You've Got Dragons. This is by Peter Beagle, who is the author of The Last Unicorn, which I still haven't read, but I am intrigued by it. And this one, I've been getting into dragons more, and I do think I'm going to eventually do like a little recommendation, like a dragon recommendations video where I tell you guys about a whole bunch of different dragon types of books that involve dragons. And this one is one that has been on my list to try before I put that video out. And it's about a person who doesn't want to be a dragon hunter, but I think inherits his father's position as one. And his job is to go in and clear out this really rundown castle before one of the kingdom's most important people shows up to stay there. So it sounds like there's going to be a little bit of maybe, I don't want to call him a hero because I don't know that it's going to be that yet, but like a reluctant main character, as well as some conversations of privilege, perhaps, with this person who's coming in and staying in this village. I'm not sure. I've read the first paragraph because this is a potential for my January vlog about new releases, and so we'll see if it ends up being selected. I'm excited regardless though to get to it in 2025. Next, we have another one that's been on my TBR for a very long time, and that is The Queens of Innis Lear. This is by Grattan, I think is her name, which is an author that I've wanted to try forever, and I just haven't ever gotten around to it. I have borrowed this book so many times on Libby, and I just never get to it. It is a chunky book, and I've heard that it is very slow, but I like slow plotting books if they're character focused, and I think that this one is. You are following 3 daughters of a mad king in this world who, I think the king is obsessed with prophecies and doesn't think that he needs to name an heir to his kingdom. His daughters disagree. They think that the kingdom's falling apart and that he could help by naming an heir, but he won't do it until a specific night because of this prophecy, and that ends up bringing turmoil into the kingdom. I know that the reviews that I've heard of this also say that this is very political, but I have enjoyed political fantasy in the past, so we'll see what I think. Next is Between Two Fires. This is a Christopher Buehlman, and I do plan on continuing with Christopher Buehlman's works with The Daughters' War in January, but this book made, I think, 3 lists on that Reddit post that I did a video on a little bit ago, where people were listing their top 10 fantasy books of the 21st century. This made 3 lists, and I have heard of it before, but I wasn't really ever interested. This book features a war between the fallen angels and heaven. And in the process of the war, humans end up getting stuck in the middle, and you follow a character who's journeying across the kingdom with a girl who has prophesied that some of these things are going to happen. That's all I really know about it. I'm just intrigued that so many people have loved it, and the only people I've heard talk about it are when I bring the Black Tongue Thief up in my videos. People will talk about this book in my comments, but I've never heard anyone on BookTube talk about it, so I'm intrigued. The last fantasy standalone that I have on this list is Weave World, which was actually a recommendation by Cliff over at Cliff's Dark Gems. This is a fantasy horror, and it is by Clive Baker, who is known to write horror, but the synopsis says, not Baker, Barker, Clive Barker. So it says, Barker turns from his usual horror to epic length fantasy for this account of the Fugue, a magical land inhabited by the descendants of supernatural beings who once shared the earth with humans. The Fugue has been woven into a carpet for protection against those who would destroy it. The death of its guardians occasions a battle between good and particularly repulsive evil forces for control of the Fugue. Weave World is rich with memorable characters, exciting situations, and pockets of Barker's trademark horror. I have really enjoyed fantasy horror in the past, and that's one of the reasons I want to read The Daughters' War in January, and so I think I need this in my life. The next category I have for you guys is new releases. I found in 2024 that I really do enjoy digging into books close to their publication date, in their year of publication, so I can talk about them on my channel. I do still intend on reading backlist books and digging into my non-new releases recommendations videos that I've done in the past, but I wanted to allow for some new releases as well. The first one that I'm going to put on this list is A Drop of Corruption, which is the second book in the Shadows of Leviathan series by Robert Jackson Bennett. This is the first book was The Tainted Cup. This is a Sherlock Holmesian inspired mystery that follows 2 people who are in a kingdom that is on a seascape where huge monsters come out of the ocean and attack the cities, and the people who protect the walls and build the walls end up getting killed, and they have to figure out why. So I really enjoyed The Tainted Cup, and I can't wait to get to the second one. I actually got the second book as an ARC from NetGalley, and so I'm excited to get to it prior to its publication date in April, I think. Speaking of releases in April, I also plan on getting to the book that held her heart, which is the 3rd and final book in the Library trilogy by Mark Lawrence that I've absolutely dearly loved. The Book That Wouldn't Burn is sitting on my shelves. It's still a book that I think on constantly because it is, to this day, one of the best plotted books I've ever read in my life. And I love the characters that have been created in this massive world. There are also a couple of novellas in this series that I would like to read before April, before this release comes out. I do plan on pre-ordering this. If you like ancient libraries and 2 civilizations that are at war and themes of talking of the damages of war, the benefits of peace, 2 peoples working together, I think that this story is just beautifully done. The third new release I have is another series continuation, and that is The Engines of War. This is the 3rd and I think final book in the Age of Uprising series, which is right here. It starts with the Engines of Empire. And this is a political, massive fantasy that follows, I think, 5 different POVs in every book. The first book, you follow the 5 family members of a noble family from this kingdom that has some potential to go to war. There are also some things going on within the inside of the kingdom dynamics that you learn about, and all of the family members are spread out throughout the entire kingdom. And so you get to see the cogs of this massive kingdom and how it works and how they've gained power. You get to learn their history. I really enjoyed this series, and I can't wait to figure out how it ends. The next new release is not from a series, and it is by an author that I have dearly loved in the past. It's called At the Bottom of the Garden. This is by Camilla Bruce, who wrote You Let Me In, and the synopsis of this just sounds really eerie, and I know I like the way that this author writes atmosphere. This says, a murderess becomes the guardian of 2 very unusual girls in this mesmerizing gothic novel. Clara Woods is a killer and perfectly fine with it. So if she can take a couple of lives to make her own a little better, so what? At the bottom of the garden is a flower bed, long overgrown, where her late husband rests in peace, or so she thought. Then the girls arrive. Lily and Violet are her nieces, recently orphaned after their affluent parents died on an ill-fated anniversary trip. In accordance with their parents' will, the sisters are to go to their closest relative, who just so happens to be Clara. Despite having no interest in children, Clara agrees to take them, hoping to get her hands on some of the girls' assets, not just to bolster her dwindling fortune, but also to establish what she hopes will be her legacy, a line of diamond jewelry. There's only one problem. Violet can see the dead man at the bottom of the garden. She can see all of Clara's ghosts and call them back into existence. Soon, Clara is plagued with her victims and at war with the gifted girls in her care. Lily and Violet have become a liability and know far more than they should. I can't wait to read this. I'm so excited. Another one that kind of has a similar tone to it. It is different because it's more fantasy, but it's by V.E. Schwab. It's coming out. It's called Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil. It says that we are in 3 different locations in 3 different years, so we have a little bit of time jumping going on. It says 3 young women, their bodies planted in the same soil, their stories tangling like roots. One grows high, one grows deep, and one grows wild, but all of them grow teeth. It has something to do with vampires because it's shelved under vampires in Goodreads. But I mean, I love V.E. Schwab, so I will read anything that she puts out to just see if it's my thing. I have run into some V.E. Schwabs that are not things that I absolutely love, but I always have a good time, so I'm in for it. The next category that I have for you guys is just books that I want to read. Some of them are backlist books, some of them are 2024 releases, but I just wanted to give myself a category where I could just go wild and talk about the books that I am just so excited to read that I haven't gotten to yet. One of those is called The Fireborn Blade, which I had never heard of before, but I watched one of Elliot Brooks' videos on the end of the year content, like some of her favorites of the year. I'm pretty sure this was one of them on the list. I don't know how else it would have ended up on my Goodreads, but this is about a female dragon slayer, I think, female knight. It says, kill the dragon, find the blade, reclaim her honor. So she's working as a knight in a field that is obviously very much a man's field. And she is told that in order to accomplish some of her goals, she has to go out and find this blade that is protected by a dragon and could potentially get killed. There's a whole bunch of people who have died, and so you go on this quest with her. It just kind of sounds like a general fantasy, but it's very short, and I swear this is the book that Elliot Brooks was talking about. She was really excited about how short it was and how much of a punch it packed with so few pages. And so if I can find fantasy novellas to recommend people, I think I'm in for the ride. Next, we have another 2024 release with The Ancients. And this book, honestly, after I put it in my anticipated releases video, I just haven't been able to get it out of my head. And it really doesn't have anything super impactful, I guess, in the description. It is a sci-fi kind of dystopian world where something about climate change has happened, and so people are living in a dying world, a dying Earth, and you're following 3 different people. I think one of them is a set of children who are orphaned, and they have to try and travel through this desolate landscape to find people because there aren't any around where they are. One group of people involves their mother, who was captured and enslaved, and she's trying to escape, I think, to get back to her children. And then you have another one that I think is like a privileged noble in the kingdom, or in this society as well, that's trying to figure out how to live. And I like the idea of having such spread out people in a desolate society, and maybe their stories converge, but something about this book has just stayed in my mind, and so I need to read it. Next, we have a backlist book with Throne of Jade. This is the second book in the Tamara series, which is another dragon book. And if you haven't heard me talk about Tamara, it is a very cozy historical fantasy featuring a dragon whose name is Tamara, who a ship captain who was never trained to become a dragon rider has to, because of circumstances at the very beginning of the book, become this dragon's owner or handler. And they form a bond in the first book that is just absolutely phenomenal, very cozy. I love being able to see how Tamara sees the world and sees humans and how they interact with each other, and the love that these 2 beings end up growing into throughout the storyline is just very lovely. Next, we have another backlist book with Written in Red. This is the Others series, and I've had this series recommended to me a lot, so that's one of the reasons that it's on this. But it also has just a lot of various supernatural creatures, werewolves, vampires. We also have our main character who, in the synopsis, it says if she gets cut, she can see the future, maybe? Yeah, she can see the future if her skin is cut. And at the very beginning of the story, she is enslaved. And I think she escapes and you follow her storyline. So I am excited to get to this. It, once again, is a series that's been recommended a lot, so fingers crossed that I love it. The last book for this category is The Art of Prophecy, which I've had on a ton of TBRs. I've had it on my dining room table from the library so many times, and I just haven't picked it up, but I am just intrigued. This is another one I think that was recommended by, it was either Elliot Brooks or Murphy Napier. This says, it's an epic fantasy ode to martial arts and magic, the story of a spoiled hero, an exacting grandmaster, and an immortal god king. It has been foretold that a child will rise to defeat the eternal Khan, a cruel immortal god king, and save the kingdom. The hero, Jian, who has been raised since birth in luxury and splendor, celebrated before he has won a single battle. But the prophecy was wrong. And I've heard that it has some humor in it. Maybe it's a little bit satirical. I'm not exactly sure, but I am excited to give it a try. Okay, the last 2 categories are the ones that I'm giving myself a little bit of wiggle room, a little bit of grace. The first is a category of 5 series I want to finish. Now, I am not giving myself the wiggle room that I could just put any 5 series in here. I am going to dictate that some of the series that I finish have to be older ones. So I will tell you guys 5 different series that I want to complete, but I'm allowing myself at the end of the year to swap out 2 of them if I need to. The first should be an easy win for me, and that is The Divine Cities. The last book is The City of Miracles. I just read City of Blades in December and absolutely loved it. I need to finish the series. And I only have 1 book left, so I should be able to finish this in 2025. Another one I should be able to finish in 2025 because I only have 1 book left is the Fallen God series, starting with God Killer, which I've already read. Sunbringer, I read last year. And then this year we are supposed to have Faithbreaker, and I'm pretty sure it's the last book. I think it's supposed to be a trilogy. So I have really enjoyed it. I'm excited to see where Hannah Kaner takes the storyline. I've been very impressed with what this author has done with so few pages. And so I'm waiting the grand finale. Next, we have the Codex Alera series by Jim Butcher, and I have 2 books left in this series. I just finished Captain's Fury, and it made it on my best books of the year for 2024, and so I want to go into this series quickly. For whatever reason, this is a series that the further I get away from it, the less likely I am to pick it up. I kind of drag my feet on it, which is so dumb because every time I pick up one of the books in the series, I have just fallen head over heels for the characters and the political nature surrounding what's going on, the betrayals and the wars that are going on between all these different races. The intensity and how big the series has gotten throughout is just phenomenal, and I need to finish it. Another series that I only have 2 left is Murderbot. I absolutely love a sassy robot, as is, evidenced by Mosscap from A Song for the Wild Build. It's also evidenced by a service model that I just read and absolutely loved, and I have enjoyed my time with all of the Murderbot books. I just got finished with, I think it's Network Effect is the actual novella-sized book in the series, and so I think I only have 2 books left to finish it, and I'm almost positive that they're both novellas. But either way, I'm gonna have fun figuring out what Murderbot gets up to with his human companions in these next 2 stories. And the last series that I would like to finish in the new year is the Rhaenyra Chronicles. So with this, we follow Royce and Hadrian, who it's their origin story. And they are the 2 men that you follow in the Rhaenyra Revelations, which is a massive fantasy. It's a political fantasy. It's kind of grungy as well. I don't know how else to describe it, but you follow these 2 men who are kind of rough and gruff, and them working together in the Rhaenyra Revelations. In the Rhaenyra Chronicles, you get to figure out how they ended up working together and how their relationship grew over time and their backstories. And it's just been lovely to be back with the boys again. The last category I have for you guys is the one that has the most wiggle room, and that is because these are authors that I would like to continue with. So I can finish any books by these authors in 2025 and check off these from my list. There are some that I do have specific books that I would like to go on to try, so I will mention them here, but I'm just saying that as long as I read something by these authors in 2025, that it's a win. The first author is Joe Abercrombie. I have absolutely loved the First Law trilogy, which is the only thing I've read by him, and I didn't continue, and I need to. I think the next book in that universe is Best Served Cold. I'll look up the books in the order that I'm supposed to read them in, and I'll just read the next one. That's my plan. The second author on this list is Robin Hobb, and I did not read anything by Robin Hobb in 2024. I finished The Realm of the Elderlings in 2023, I think, and absolutely loved it, but I never continued on to Live Ship Traders. I did try. I should say I haven't continued on. I did try it on audio, and it just wasn't working for me, and I definitely think it was wrong time to read the book. It wasn't a fault of the book by any means. And so I am going to give it another shot and start Live Ship Traders this year. Fingers crossed it works better for me upon my second pickup. Next is Adrian Tchaikovsky, who I have read from this year. I read my first book by him, which was Service Model. I read it on audio, realized that he narrated his own audio, which was absolutely fantastic. Loved that book. It's one of my favorites of 2024, and I can't wait to read more. I do have a couple in mind. I want to read Children of Time eventually, but I think the one I will probably pick up is going to be The City of Lost Names? The City of Last Chances. I think it's The City of Last Chances. I'm mixing books up, but I'm pretty sure I'll put a picture up so you guys know which book I'm talking about, but that's the one I think I'm going to start with. Next is Nat Cassidy. I did not read any of Nat Cassidy's books in 2024. I have read Mary and Nestlings, and I'm not sure if he has anything other than Rest Stop for me to try in the new year, but if he doesn't, I don't care. I want to read Rest Stop. So Nat Cassidy is one of those authors that I will, from this point on, probably not purchase his books whenever they come out, but I will read them because I just enjoy so much how he writes women and female characters and the problems that arise within their own storylines. With Mary, you had an elderly protagonist who was having trouble with aging, and then with Nestlings, you had a motherhood story with someone who had some trauma with her pregnancy. And I can't wait to see what happens with Rest Stop. And I've heard good things. I'm hoping that I'll get the same result that I got with his first 2 works. And number 5, I'm cheating a little bit because I'm putting 2 authors in this spot because I really want to continue with both of them, but I would be happy if I just continued with one. I want to read more Agatha Christie or more Shirley Jackson in the new year. Both of these are authors that I would like to read more from anyway. I feel like they're always on the back burner of my mind. I'm never reaching to pick those books up, but I know Agatha Christie I have absolutely loved reading at night for my bedtime read. It's very cozy. Shirley Jackson also has delivered with some really eerie atmospheric reads that I have loved in spooky season, but I would like to give her a try outside of spooky season. So anything from these 2 authors, if I can continue in the new year, will be a win. That is my 25 in 2025. I know the last 2 categories do give me a little bit of an out, but not much of one, and I feel like giving myself some wiggle room will potentially help me finish this list this year, so fingers crossed. Let me know in the comments down below which books you're really excited for in 2025. Is there a new release that you're excited for? Is there a backlist book that you are just dying to get to? I would love to chat with you guys. If you are not feeling chatty, leave me a little magnifying glass for Agatha Christie, like the queen of crime. Or something to indicate that you're solving a murder, like maybe the little detective with the monocle. I would love to see those in the comments just to let me know that you're here. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have a lovely evening, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!